Deadly Class premieres on the SyFy channel on January 16th, but we have your review of the first episode right here, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Reels Talk with Amanda and Omar.
I am Omar.
And I am Amanda. Welcome back.
By the way, I wore this shirt to work. It was last minute that I'm like, I'm going to put a tie on because we can look like Deadly Class assassins. Did you wear a white shirt to work?
I did not, but I had planned on wearing the white shirt for this episode, so I guess Omar and I think alike.
I guess so. So, Deadly Class, I guess we'll find out if we both think alike or not.
On this episode, yes.
Yeah. How we rate it. So, Deadly Class, really quick, is based on Rick Remender's comic book, which is brought to you by Image. It's an ongoing series. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about the TV show? Because Rick Remender is one of the showrunners and also one of the teleplay writers,
yeah,
correct?
He's also writing it and he's also the showrunner on it.
And the big thing about it is that the Russo brothers are producing it. God, they love throwing that out there.
They love throwing
every ad I
it's
see.
important, right? Yeah. So basically, this story is about a boy named Marcus who, through a series of unfortunate events, much like Lemony Snicket's, he goes from a happy home to being homeless on the street and has a kind of dark past that you see revealed throughout the TV show and, of course, the comics as well.
The important thing, though, is that this takes place in the year 1987 in San Francisco.
And what happens is he's recruited by Master Lin, who is the head of King's Dominion. It is a secret academy for assassins. And so they think he has a unique skill to bring to the table. He wants to bring him into the school. And that is really where the first episode takes us, and that's the premise of the show. Is Marcus deciding whether or not he wants to become part of King's Dominion and go to this school.
Some of the assassins in the school were slowly introduced through in this 1 hour long pilot. I guess we can call it a pilot, right?
It is a pilot, that is, yeah.
So we're introduced to Saya, who is part of the Yakuza clan, and also the main recruiter of Marcus, I would say.
Yes, the most convincing one. And she's played by Lana Condor, who just most recently got famous from To All the Boys I've Loved Before. It's a rom-com on Netflix. I highly recommend to everyone.
And then we're also introduced to Maria, who is part of the cartel. Because all these kids, much like high school, have little cliques. And it's interesting to see the little cliques.
Because different cliques.
You have Yakuza, you have the Dixie Mafia, I think it's
Dixie Mafia,
and then you have the cartel.
The Hessians,
all these little stereotypes that we've seen, but actual stereotypes, right? And you have kids from, like, that are sons and daughters of the CIA agents. And then you have Marcus, who is part of the losers because he doesn't have anybody. So that's where he meets Billy, and he starts building a relationship with this kid named Billy, who is kind of a punk. And we'll talk about punk later, how important that is.
Exactly.
And then you also have Willie.
Willie, yes, and he's part of the
First World Order.
First World Order, yes. So those are guys from reputable gangster families and things like that. Yeah,
from around the area. And then you got Brandy.
Yep, Brandy.
The stuck-up, rich, the Dixie Mafia.
Dixie Mafia.
Then you've got Victor, who looks a lot smaller than he does in his comic. But I don't think they can hire a 16-year-old that looks as huge as he does in his comic book.
They've tried to keep the ages pretty appropriate, too, as far as the casting of the actors. So that's good.
And you've got Petra, who I think that they did a phenomenal job casting her in the way that she looks during this time period. No Shabnam, though, so missing my boy, because he plays a bigger role later on in the comics. I'm hoping to see him in the TV show.
Those are pretty much the main cast of characters that we see that are introduced right off the bat.
Well, you mentioned Master Lin, but
by Benedict Wong.
Yeah, you didn't mention who he was played back, and that is Benedict Wong.
Yes.
The guy from, I guess,
Doctor Strange.
Everybody now knows Doctor Strange. He's a master of arts.
He is.
And I think he brought it, man. He killed it.
Oh, he did.
Without spoiling it, we'll talk about the characters really quick.
Let's talk about the actors, yeah. So, first and foremost, I gotta say, Benjamin Wadsworth plays Marcus. And right off the bat, I think that was perfect casting. I love him. He reminds me of a young Emil Hirsch. He's that ethnically ambiguous character. Obviously, Benjamin Wadsworth.
Like Oscar Isaac?
Oscar Isaac. And he is of Mexican-American descent in real life. So, it is staying true to that aspect of, he is Hispanic in nature. But also, I just loved what he brought to Marcus. I enjoyed him.
Really? Okay.
I did. I liked him, yeah.
I think the ones that stood out for me are the girl that plays Maria. I thought she killed it.
Yeah, she did a
because
great job.
Maria is one of the most important characters in the comic books and is a very complicated character. She has many layers. And they had to have somebody there that can pull off a character like that is complicated, and she did. Because, you have a character like Saya, who is kind of a quiet...
Yes. Mysterious.
Yeah, almost like a Batman character. That's kind of easy to pull off. Yeah, just look like you're bored and you're always constipated and you can pull it off. Right? You don't have to be the greatest actor in the world to pull that off. But with somebody like Maria, I think she's a very complicated character. Marcus, I think, did a good job pulling what he had to do because it starts off with his narrative. Like, he's talking.
Yeah, much like the comic, right? Yeah.
He's talking through this series, through this pilot episode about what happened in his life and how he came to be in this life through a series of, like you said, a series of cartoons that are very reminiscent to Wes Craig's artwork in Deadly Class. So I thought that was a really cool way of doing flashbacks. I like the kid that played Billy. Marcus is okay, and Saya, they're okay. I mean, they haven't really shown that much the extremity of their acting ability. The kid that I didn't think was doing that great, at least for me, was the kid that played Willie. Even though he delivered some really funny lines. Which, this is not spoiler, but there is a part where he's going back and he's bonding with Marcus, and they're talking about comic books, and Marcus is like, yeah, I like independent comic books like Flaming Carrot and American Flag, which, you know, Deadly Class is an independent Image comic book. Willie was like, no, Chris Claremont and John Byrne's Dark Phoenix was the shit. And he was like, whatever, man. He pulled out a gun, and he's like, say John Byrne and Chris Claremont's Dark Phoenix Saga is the best. And he says it. And I'm like, okay. That's awesome. I loved it. Line. Of course, that's catering to people that read comic books.
Yes. This, which we expect to be a majority of the audience. Yeah.
Right. I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping it's not because to me, this show has the capability of being that show that everybody talks about later on.
Yeah. The water cooler.
Water cooler conversation, right? Much like Game of Thrones. It wasn't until the ending of season 1 and then the beginning of season 2 that people started talking about it. And then by the time we got to season 3, normal folks were watching Game of Thrones. People that don't watch dragons or fantasy shows. But this show has that potential. Because I feel like at the end of season 1, if they end it the way that it needs to end, everybody's going to be talking about this show.
I really think the writing of this first episode, at least, I think that's what helped drive the story too. Not just the characters and the actors in it, but I think the writing, for me, was tremendous. It kept me.
You mean the dialogue?
The dialogue and just the way just the way it ran together, and it was, you know, very catchy, and there were a lot of great moments, a lot of great quotes that I think people would pick up on that they would enjoy. That would be like at some point.
Okay, well, let's talk about that because I feel like that might be a good and a bad thing about this show. Because if it goes back, because you got Rick Remender, one of the showrunners, right? And he's borrowing from his own comic book.
Yes, he is.
Sometimes quotes in comic books work a lot better in comic books as you're reading them.
Okay.
Quotes in movies just kind of fall flat depending on who's delivering them. Because I thought there were some hokey lines. But I think some of the dialogue was okay. You know, it's hard to write that dialogue in the 80s the way you want it to. What I'm really surprised...
Because you don't want to write it modern.
Right, you don't want to modernize. And I thought for what it was, they did a pretty good job. Except, like I said, with the exception of Willie, I think the actor himself tended to put a little bit of himself into the character. Yeah. Which is fine. A lot of actors do that. What I will say, though, about the dialogue is I was really surprised that the F-bomb was dropped left and right.
Yeah. And
this is a SyFy show, right?
Now, we've seen it you can watch it right now on the SyFy app if
you can also watch it on YouTube.
And watch it on YouTube. But it does premiere on the 16th officially on the network. So I'm curious to see if on the network they'll have as much cursing in it that they did on this pilot. Because I kept watching it like, are we sure I'm watching it on the SyFy channel?
It was interesting and kind of shocking because they dropped it. The first time they dropped it, I was like, oh, this is like Mad Men. They're going to get charged a fee, right?
Yeah, but then they kept dropping.
Like, nope, they kept going. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Whatever. But that's pretty much all I wanted to say before we get into the spoiler part. Other than the setting. Well, let's talk about the setting.
Yeah, let's talk about
the
setting.
So it's in the 80s.
And I love that it's a different type of 80s. We're used to seeing from other very popular shows that idealistic, nostalgic 80s, right? This is more of your punk rock 80s.
Well, yeah, we're used to seeing from like It or Stranger Things, the little small town 80s, like 80s, that remind you of E.T. and Short Circuit. This is more, you're right, this is more dark and gritty. Yeah, so it takes place in San Francisco, so it's that punk
old scene,
which is helped by the amazing soundtrack. Seriously, the soundtrack is what like lured me into the scene sometimes. They were awesome. The choices that they picked, a lot of punk rock, a lot of rock. I could be wrong, but I don't see any sign of Russo brothers in this pilot at all. Maybe you did, but other than the names being there, I don't see anything that speaks Civil War or Winter Soldier or Endgame to me. Yeah, nothing like that.
And how so? You talking about like the action elements, or just in general, like the dialogue?
The action itself, or the way that it's directed.
The way that's directed.
Because it isn't them directing.
No,
they're just producers.
No, they're just producers. They just threw their money at it, and there you go.
They just want that money. But anyway.
I don't blame them. But yeah, so you want to talk about spoilers now?
Sure. So right now, spoilers. I am hooked. I really want more. Because I was so turned off by Titans. Titans had the capability of becoming an amazing show, and I stopped watching about episode 4, so it could have gotten better. But that pilot was so bad and so cringeworthy.
This is so
And it might be because those iconic characters have been part of my life since I was 4 years old. These characters just came to my lap a couple of years ago. But I fell in love with them. I automatically love Marcus and Saya, and Maria is my favorite character in comics, so I'm really happy. Seriously, with who they chose.
Benedict Wong is great in it too. I just think.
Oh yeah, he was. He looks a lot different than he does in the comic book.
The first scene you're given when the pilot opens is them already in class, right? And he gets that note from Brandy Lynn, and then Master Lin stops, and he thinks he's gonna attack him, and he just backhands her with his stick right in the nose, and it just, for me, it set the tone. Okay, this is going to be, it's not going to be any hold bars, it's going to take all the kicks that it can get. I just, right off the bat, you knew it from going in.
Well, and if you don't know what the comic book's about, I think a viewer would be like, oh man, they're brutal. But not only that, because you see the note that is passed to Marcus, right? And you're like, okay, this girl's totally crushing on him. I've seen this before.
Right.
But when he reads the note, it's like this racist note. So that will shock a lot of people going, oh, okay, this is not your regular show.
No,
and then she gets whacked and she bleeds and she licks the blood and you're like, oh, okay, this is really cool or weird.
Yeah, weird.
But I am hooked and I have high hopes for this show because, like I said earlier in the non-spoiler part, this show has the capability to be as huge as Game of Thrones in the shock factors that it does. Because Remender is a master of that. Like, I love the way that this book, and we'll talk about this on Old Reader, New Readers, but this is my second favorite book that Remender has worked on.
Yes, yeah. And because we are talking about it on our Old Reader, New Reader this coming Tuesday, so make sure you watch it then.
Live at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard
Time.
Yes,
you mentioned it earlier in our non-spoiler portion, but so there's a specific part where he's talking about his life and how everything had gone to shit, and he brings up the death of his parents. And it looks... I read afterwards. I read the first issue of Deadly Class. It looks like a shot-for-shot animated version of what happens to his parents in the comics with the crazy lady falling on top of them. It had very similar vibes. I thought it was a really touching way to do that.
It's an interesting way to approach his troubled past, right? So pretty much in the 80s, and some of this is true, and some of it is made up. Because you are, in an alternate reality.
Yeah, so Reagan had cut mental health funding, and so that, as Marcus says, released a lot of mentally unstable people into the streets. Including
the lady that threw herself off the building and killed her mom and dad.
Yes, exactly.
His mom and dad.
So that is where we get Marcus's end goal is to kill Ronald Reagan.
So the reason he was recruited was because he decided to burn down the orphanage where he was staying because apparently some things went down. Killed everybody, including kids.
Yeah.
So that's why he was recruited, and they're like, man, you're an evil guy. And then it's kind of revealed that, no, he did not kill everybody. Something else was going on.
Yes.
So it's an interesting story, and I really like it. And even for people that have not read the comic books, I definitely recommend watching it. Because
you don't have to read the comic books to enjoy this.
Yeah. So I'm really happy with what they're doing with it.
Yeah, I agree.
The only other spoiler part thing was their first assignment is to go and kill one person that doesn't deserve to live, and he chooses the homeless guy that took a picture of his family, right?
Yeah,
Rory,
but he's also Rory, and he also has done some other stuff to other people.
But Willie goes with him. Now Willie, throughout the show, he's been portrayed as this badass, like I've killed before.
Yeah.
So he takes him out, and Willie takes the gun and he's like, "Hey, let's kill this motherfucker," and he couldn't pull the trigger.
Nope.
So they let him go, and then Marcus comes back and beats the shit out of him and kills him. And that's a big shocker. I mean, okay, you're sympathetic towards this kid. He did not burn down the orphanage, as you find out, or killed people in that orphanage. So he's good. And then he kills this homeless guy. That, to me, would push me to keep watching the next season.
Yeah.
And you throw Henry Rollins in there.
Yeah.
As a throwback to the 80s, he plays one of the teachers.
Jurgen Denke, I think, or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The poison teacher.
Right now, a lot of people love that the anti-hero complex, and that's really what you're bringing. I mean, he's a good kid, and that all the kids are like that. So you're gonna have to. It's that balance of finding the admirable qualities in them, understanding that there's also those not so great qualities about them, and then just bring it together. And of course, hopefully, we'll get I'm hoping a lot of a younger audience watching this as well, because it has a lot of the staples of what we've seen in a lot of young adult literature. Your secret school, your chosen one, so to speak, and all the cliques and things that go along with it. So
it is a perfect mix of Harry Potter
Oh.
and Heathers and Naruto and Game of Thrones. Like, if you like any of those shows, you come and watch it. It's great.
Yeah.
What would you rate it?
Oh, for the first episode?
First episode, pilot episode. For a pilot episode,
I would give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Wow.
I absolutely loved this pilot.
Okay.
Me and my husband watched it, and we both. I just couldn't. Usually, I just end up tearing myself away from it, but I could not tear myself away from this. Okay. I wanted to know what happened next, and then I read the comments later.
I think for a pilot, it did what it was set out to do.
Yep.
It's introducing you to this new world, and it's building on that world. You're introducing people to an array of different characters. And then you also have to introduce their personal drives, like what makes them go. And I think they did a really good job of that.
They did.
Like, with the exception of that one actor that could probably grow on me, I think everybody else did a really good job. So for me, 8.5 out of 10. I'm excited to see where this season goes.
Yes.
Definitely an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was one of the best comic book pilots I've seen come out of a TV show. So
yeah, I would have to agree with you there.
If you guys have seen it, let us know in the comments down below.
Yeah,
if you haven't seen it, come back and watch this after you have, or the spoiler half.
Yeah, and let us know what you think.
Yeah.
But other than that, thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button.
And hit that notification button to let you know when our live shows go live and when we have a new episode up.
Exactly.
Ring the bell, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's a little bell.
All right, ring the bell.
I ring it.
All right.
So don't forget to ring that bell. Follow us on all our social media channels as well. And remember,
Near Man Con.
Yes, if it's classy and cool, it must be near me. Thanks guys for watching. Nope, you want to cut it, don't you?
I can't.
Just so you guys know, Rick Remender liked my tweet about how much I love this.
Yep, cutting that out.
No, you're not.
Totally.
It's in the bloopers.
You are also Agent V.
Yeah, you're right.
V is for Valdivia, your V is for vagina.
Because I have one.
You ready?
Yeah.
Because I'm brown. So automatically I wear a tie. I look like a
and
mobster or a busboy.
A mobster. Deadly Class premieres on SyFy channel. Jerry. One more time. Deadly Class premieres on SyFy channel on January 16th.
And now the news. Come on.
Deadly Class premieres.
That's better.
January 16th. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Amanda. Because I realized I didn't say.
Did you forget my name?